I am fed up. So are you, and so is all of Leafs Nation. There's not even worth an introduction to our show. I'll
No.
introduce it off like just ethics of a host. This is the Leafs Line podcast. I'm Mario Russo, your host. Evan Davis, Jared Rotenberg, and Adam Rimoli. Clearly, us four are not worth the Leafs' time, and I would argue they're not worth our time either. But for about 35, 40 minutes, we'll be talking about them, getting into what a disastrous start it's been to the regular season for them. I believe they're at a 4-4-2, I believe, or 4-4-1 record.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4-4-2 through 10 games. Not ideal for the group. And well, there's just so much to talk about, and I don't really want to waste any time. Guys, like, what's the biggest thing that you've noticed from this Leafs team that's kind of stood out to you and say, like, just jumps in the face and says, what is going on? Like, I personally, for me, it was the lack of engagement. The team is unengaged, uncoordinated, and the worst of all, they're uninspired. That's what I found, at least. Like, you lose so many first rounds in the playoffs. You say you're going to do these things. You say you're going to learn. And again, it's this, like, we do this every October. This is the second year in a row we've done Leafs Line, which I'm so glad it stuck together. We still have these episodes that we got to do, and it's extremely sad that we have to do them. But like, that's the one thing that jumped out to me. There's no inspiration. There's no energy. They don't want to get anything done. And you could look at the personnel, the players, the team in general, the management, like, put a blame on someone, and we'll do that later in the show. But guys, what's glaring in the face right now? What is standing up to you guys the most?
Yeah. Oh, do you want to take table, Jared?
I was just going to say, they cannot complete a pass. This team cannot complete a pass whatsoever. In the neutral zone, Pierre Engvall sends a pass right to a guy on the other team. Multiple examples, Justin Hall, Morgan Riley, you name it, everyone on this lineup, they're sitting there with the puck. Mitch Marner, another one I'll tell you after that Anaheim Ducks game. He has the puck, looking at people on his team, and his bread and butter is his passing and his playmaking ability. He is looking people on his own team in the face and sending it right to a player on the other team. I don't know what's going on with this team right now. They just, like you mentioned, it's pure sloppiness. They don't look engaged. When they were on that California road trip, they looked like they would rather be on the beaches of California than actually playing hockey and caring about what's happening on the ice. And it's very concerning because even you talk about last year, yes, they had a bad start. They weren't getting the wins, but it's never been this bad, in my opinion. I think they are significantly worse now. I've never seen this combination of players play as bad as they are playing right now. There's not a single one. Maybe the second line, Tavares and Nylander, are looking all right, but no one is jumping out to me as guys that are playing unbelievable hockey right now. Everyone's sloppy. Everyone's making those ridiculous passes, throwing the puck into the middle of the zone to other players on different teams. No one looks polished. And 10 games in, I expect you to get that off-season hangover away because you need to pick up your game.
And the thing is, Jared, it's not just 10 games. It's games 1 to 7 of the last series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's all game sevens against Montreal and or elimination games, if you want to use that word, against Columbus, if you want to go that far back. It's not just the one game. It's not just the 10. It's not just the start of the season. It's the entire era of the core four or the core five, whatever you label the core as. It's just been rooted in them since the start. And like a lot of Leafs Nation, I've been seeing it all over social media where it's, just slow it down. It's the start of the season. Don't panic. Don't panic. Let's compare it to last season too, where everybody was losing their heads. And that was the last time I heard Keefe's name get brought up into the mix of getting fired. And actually, it's a very big milestone for the Leafs line cast here. Well, most of us, at least, we watched that Penguins game when they got blown out of the water. That was the first time we ever kind of went out and did something together. Obviously, we all met throughout the pandemic, but that was a game I'll never forget for a couple of reasons. And one of which is the one where it was just a big, massive blow. And that's where all the blame started getting thrown around. That's where we're at, man. We're getting closer to the point where the panic button has to be set. And Dom, I want to go over to you now, and I'll work my way over to Evan. But I asked you guys before, biggest thing glaring in your face that's an issue with this team. There's so many you can choose from, I bet. But Jared, you mentioned sloppiness. You mentioned the start of the year is not ideal. I mentioned that it's not just the start of the year. It's a calamity of different events. Adama, what is it to you? What sticks out to you that says something's really off and something's got to change?
Yeah, sure. The reason they're sloppy, I could tell you, is because they're not very good. Like, I'm beginning to think this, not core of players. I'm not saying Tavares and all of them are bad players. I'm saying the supporting cast just isn't that good. Justin Hall is not an NHL player. Victor Mete, as much as I love him, is barely an NHL player. Rasmus Sandin, apparently, barely an NHL player. That entire bottom six, barely NHL players. Like, our third line center tomorrow night is Holmberg. What's his first name? Who?
Pontus
Holberg is our third line center tomorrow night.
Never heard of her.
Zach Aston Reese, we're relying on PTOs now. Nicholas Aubé-Kubel, relying on a guy that is only in the NHL again because he happened to be on the Avs and won a Stanley Cup. He's scratched now because he's not very good. And it doesn't help that, like, Michael Bunting just is back to a few years ago Michael Bunting, where no one heard of him. Kerfoot, yeah, he's an NHL player. Like, he's maybe a middle six guy for Arizona. Shouldn't be your second line left wing. I can go on and on.
Exactly.
Eric Shalgren is not an NHL goalie. We don't have that many NHL players, guys. I hate to say it. Is Pierre Engvall a lock for the NHL? Like the way he's playing this year, no. Like, these aren't, like, I maybe we're just overrated. Like, I don't know. Because last year, it wasn't, when we struggled, it wasn't, yeah, they look like shit every night. It was a lot of, I'll admit now in hindsight, a lot of, remember, we got goalied quite a bit. We got unlucky quite a bit. We were still out chancing and outplaying teams. The results just weren't there. Lo and behold, they have a breakout November. There are no signs pointing towards having this breakout November because we're getting outplayed. We're getting outworked. The big four, big five, including Morgan Riley.
Yeah.
None of them. Nylander looked good for a bit. Tavares looked good for a bit. They've slowed down. I'm waiting to rant about Marner later on. Okay. Because I've been so nice to him since January. Have not said trade him, not said any of that. And I cannot wait. I'm sorry, I've been ranting too much. Anyone else want to speak?
You mentioned a couple good points, Evan. I'll go to you in a second. But just about, like, the structure of the team. You mentioned a massive list, and you said it. You could go on and on. Absolutely, you can. And we're going to get into that a little later as to why you can go on and who's the cause for your ability to continuously pump out name after name of guys who are not ready for the NHL, or at least don't show it in this recent stretch. And you can even dig even further into last season or their tenures with the Leafs and then see why they're not NHL ready. But Evan, man, we've been waiting for it all day. What's staring at you? Like, what are you saying and looking at about this team, and what's popping out? Like, what's the issue? The biggest one? Because you could choose from so many.
Yeah, I think, like, just being an outsider looking in, like, watching the games, like, I've said it, and I'm just going to say, like, I don't see what's stopping this team from making that big trade. Like, I really don't see the point of, like, saying that this, for whatever reason, Nylander, Tavares, Marner, and Matthews are eventually going to work out. And, like, I listened to the Steve Dangle podcast that he had, that maybe it was released yesterday. And, like, to his points, like, this core has been together for 7 years. And, like, what have they shown? Like, and the only reason I say trade Nylander is because his contract is the only one that is the easiest to trade out of the four. Like, you're not getting, like, no one's going to take on John Tavares' $10 million contract. Like, you're not going to get a return that's suitable for it. So, like, I really don't see, they need a locker room, like, shakeup. They need something that's going to, like, light a fire under them. And if it means trade, like, I think you got to trade one of the big guys to really make a locker room improvement. You're not going to, like, spark a fire if you just trade Kerfoot. Like, no offense to Kerfoot, you're not that impactful for the team to be like, wow, this is getting serious. Like, you either got to fire Keefe, you got to fire someone, you got to trade someone. Like, you got to do something that sparks a fire, because the fact that they played Anaheim, Arizona, and San Jose and walked away with 2 points in total, that's just, like, you can't do that. And how Jared said, like, at the beginning of this year, like, the reason why the Leafs played Tampa was because they kept giving games away. And now it's the same pattern. Like, you can't be giving away these points when you're in such a competitive division. And everyone has looked horrible except for Samsonov. Like, he's been the only saving grace of this team. Other than that, like, Matthews, 3 goals in 10 games, like, I get he was at this slow pace, but who's to say he's going to score 60 again? Like, I'm not doubting his skill, but to score 60 back-to-back years is highly unlikely. And the fact that he only has 3 goals in 10 games and one of them was a deflection in front, like he hasn't really looked good. And Marner, I talked to Jared about that. You had to bench him after, like, in that Anaheim game. The fact that he was benched for only 2 shifts and then came back out sends such a horrible message to the rest of the team, because now Keefe has said the only reason Marner didn't get benched is because he's Mitch Marner. Even though he caused 2 of the 3 goals, we're still going to play him. Like, if that's Engvall or Camp, he's sitting and then he's scratched for like the next 3 games. Like, you needed to sit Marner the rest of that game. Like, if you don't want to do a trade to send a message, you would have had to have benched Mitch Marner to like really get the team understanding that like shit is serious. Like, this is, like, to your guys' point last year, like they were just not, like, the offense was great. They got unlucky. Goaltending was a little bit of an issue. This year, it's just like they look so out of it.
And the thing is, we'll segue to it right away. You mentioned the benching for 1 shift, 2 shift, whatever it may be. I guess Marner had to go break a stick or something like that. That is not even a great look for him. Like, we have to look at the guy who is, and unfortunately in hockey, this is how it works, the most disposable. He is the guy they're able to move very easily. Its name is Sheldon Keefe, and his name has been brought up so many times. Now, whether you agree with firing Sheldon Keefe, or you think it's the right answer, it doesn't really mean anything. The point is, he's the guy who is the most capable of being moved without any massive repercussions. And that's something you might want, those big repercussions. I think it's a lateral move. If you move Sheldon Keefe and you get rid of him, how are you bettering the team if no one else is leaving? Evan, you mentioned that fire sparked under their butts to get them going. I don't know if even a coaching change is something that would.
Oh no, like a coaching. We did that with Babcock and everyone. Like a coaching.
What's the point?
You could bring in. I mean, God rest his soul. You could bring back like Scotty Bowman or whatever. Like, you could bring back the greatest coach of all time. I don't think that's helping. You need something with the players this time. I'm sick and tired of them always firing a coach.
And not that it won't help. It will absolutely help in the meantime. It is absolutely never the recipe for success. You see it all the time. Teams get a new coach in and they go on an absolute run, whether it's for a month or a month and a half. It's ridiculous. And you're like, wow, that was the complete answer. Why didn't we do it sooner? It's because it's not sustainable, guys. It is not the be all end all. It's going to make your team better, because every team would have done it. If you're struggling for a little bit, every team's going to fire a new coach, and you see a revolving door of coaches throughout the league. So where do we put the blame? Evan, you mentioned trading big pieces like Marner. We got Dubas, who we're going to look at, and I'm very interested to look at, because you guys all know, and the listeners all know, I'm a very big Marner, Nylander, same thing. But I mean, yeah. Dubas, I'm a big supporter of him. I've always been. You guys know that. I don't think my thoughts are very similar. I'll discuss that in a little bit. But what's the answer, guys? You got Keefe, who I mentioned is the kind of most disposable. It's you can move him around, and that could, in the eyes of the media, can make an impact for sure. That's somewhat can satisfy as a solution. You can get Dubas, but how many times do you see a GM getting sacked mid like early season, not even mid-season yet? Like, that's a very rare occurrence. And then there's this other one where it's the players, and a lot of ownership can be taken on these players because they're the ones playing every single night, and they're the ones putting the results on the paper. Which way do you go? Jared, I'll start with you. Like, what's the answer for this team? Is it trade? Is it through sackings of management or personnel? Like, which way do you go? Or is it nothing at all? You stay the course and you fight through it. You hope that this team pulls through, because they have done it before when repercussions like this weren't made. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge last year. Maybe it's just a process. Maybe it's just a slow learning curve that they've so promised to get out of. What's the answer?
In my opinion, it has to be a change on the ice. It has to be a trade you make. It has to be someone getting into this locker room, and consequently someone leaving this locker room in order to make a change on the ice. Mentioning Sheldon Keefe, I don't think that helps, because he's the winningest coach in Leafs history in terms of winning percentage. He's done his job. He's gotten the team to play well. And the team is capable. Moving back to those playoff losses, I don't think I'd blame it on Keefe. I think it's the players that are capable of winning, and it's the players who have fell short. Over to Dubas, I think he's built a team, which I'm actually going to go against Adamo here. I think the squad has proven it is good enough. And as much as a lot of guys aren't playing well enough right now, I think the team is a good enough team on paper, but ultimately they aren't playing well enough. And I think it's them who has to answer for that. And ultimately, I think that's going to result in a trade. I don't think it's trading one of the big four, because I just don't think you're winning a trade of any of those players. I don't
Why?
think.
Can you go back on that? Why?
I don't think losing William Nylander, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, or John Tavares makes you a better team. Yes, obviously you get the cap space available to get good players in to replace them, but I just don't think you're replacing them with a player of any of their stature, and I don't think we're improving our team by getting rid of those guys, at least in my opinion. But I think it has to be a trade somewhere with a guy on the second or third line, someone who's going to slot in a top 6 position, but not your core 4, or on your third line. I think you're making a trade like that, just someone new to get into the locker room, a new face, make a replacement, make a change on the ice, because I think that's where it comes from. I think this team's players have proven they're capable of playing better than they're playing right now. And that is how we're going to get out of this. I'll call it a rut for now, but that's how we're going to get out of this, is the players stepping up and a new face getting in there to help them get out of that. Because I don't think a trade or a firing of upper management or anything like that does any good. I think it has to come on the ice with a trade.
You want to add it, Donald?
Oh, I'm gonna go against him, and I guess this is where the Marner discussion comes up, because last off season after Montreal, I was trade Marner. Okay, fine, we didn't. Then he has a shit start to the season, and I'm right. I was right. And then Mitch Marner's like, actually, no, I'm going to go and be the best player from January till whatever game 1 of the Tampa Bay game was. And it has nothing to do with Mitch Marner on the ice. I need to preface this. It's never been Mitch Marner on the ice. It's always been, for me, Mitch Marner cannot play in Toronto. He is not suited to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And him, we'll get to this. I don't know if we were going to get to this, but we're getting to it now. Him leaving the bench. He's a grown ass man. He is 25 years old. He left his teammates, grabbed his fucking $400 stick, pardon my curse, and he snapped it. He threw a hissy fit and he came back. Why did he throw the hissy fit? Because he was benched. It's not because he was playing like shit. Okay? That's not why. Players don't do that when they play bad. And if they do, they'll just be pissed on the bench. You go out there and you play your shift. You play your shift pissed. Okay. I've been benched before. Everyone's been benched before. And when you're benched, you go out there and you play with a chip on your shoulder. You were given that second opportunity, Mitch. He put you back out there, which, Keefe, what are you doing?
Ridiculous to see.
What are you like? What are you like? Good message you sent, by the way, Keefe. You can go through a hissy fit and then that'll put you back out there. And I think you can win that trade, because I think that winning that trade is maybe not winning it on the ice, but you're getting rid of this person, and perhaps you're sending a message. You're also not going to get nothing from Arnold. Let me say that. You're going to get a shit ton of assets.
But
you're winning in the sense that a message is being sent, and maybe it gets more out of this core, because frankly, I don't think they're that great. And it's the same thing every year. I've remained consistent. This team probably is going to get 50 wins. Like, I know I just called them not very good. The core, like Matthews is able to carry them, I think. And they get good goaltending. Sure, they win 50 wins and they lose in the first round again.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, to Jared's point, I don't think the Leafs have proven that this roster is good enough to win, because they haven't won yet. And like, I never understood, like, I don't think Kyle Dubas is a great GM. I think he's like an okay GM, because I just think the way that he's built this roster, he built it so top heavy, like the bottom 6, like to Adamo's point, like it's not good. And like, look, I understand, like, when teams like Boston and Colorado built out their teams, like they snagged their guys early and then signed them long term. But I think what Kyle Dubas did was that he competed against himself. Like, when signing these players, like, I know Matthews, Marner are phenomenal talents. At the time, you probably could have gotten Marner maybe at $8.5, $9 million, and you just asked these guys to take discounts for the betterment of the team. Like, Nathan McKinnon, like, as great as he is, he could have gotten so much more money. Mikko Rantanen, so much more money. Like, I feel like he bet against himself too many times, and it just caused where the fact that you have to rely on PTOs to fill out your fourth and third line, and even sign like Engvall to 2 million. Like that's, I know it's not, doesn't sound like a lot for NHL, but like you could get like Calle Yarncroc was only signed for 3. Like what could you have gotten for 2? And I don't know.
Oh,
Who?
God. Yarncroc is
Yarncroc.
4 years.
Oh,
Bro,
I don't know.
all I know is that he wears 19, and I'm like, Spezza? No. And then
I don't
quickly
know.
reminded how bad he is.
I just feel like Kyle Dubas's seat is just on flames right now, because the reason why they didn't sign him to an extension was because they were probably going to figure out how this year went and then change management. Maybe that's the thing that sparks this team, is the fact that they just hose Dubas and Keefe at the end of this year and just go with like a new identity for the beginning part of next season. Because like right now, I don't know. Like I don't know why they continue to do this trend of like success in the regular season, and then when it comes to the playoffs, they don't have success. I do think the Leafs have the potential to turn it around, just because their roster, like it's regular season, so you can win games just based off skill. It's not like you need to really be heavy defensive minded, but I don't know. I'm just afraid that they're just going to continue to go into this trend of success in the regular season, and the playoffs come around, and then it just goes back. And now we're questioning ourselves again. Does Marner get traded? Nylander get traded? A coaching change? Like they got to act now, because like who knows if Matthews is here? Like I don't know. Like nobody knows if Matthews. He's rejected every question about signing an extension in Toronto. Like he's not fully confident. He hasn't said, yes, I'm here to stay for the rest of my career. Like he keeps going, next question. Yep. So I don't know what happens.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you mentioned a bunch of Dubas. I want to put a pin in it because you guys all know I want to get into him. I do want to say one thing, and it's about that core 4. It's about the core 5, whatever you may be, whatever you refer to it as. It's this, as much as this, what we're talking about right now. And the reason why we're talking about it is because it's a current blip in the season right now. And of course it's going to raise headlines because it's not, well, I wouldn't say it's not normal for this team, but it's not expected of this team to do this. You have to look at last season. I think I think everything has to connect to itself. There's so much continuity within why the streak is like this, why they're playing like this. And I think a lot of the reasons are looking back at history. I think a lot of people can learn a lot from history, learn a lot about the present when they look back at history. I think the Leafs is no different. Last season was special, guys. It was so special. It was destined for something great. Why was it so heartbreaking? Because I thought that was the best Leafs team we could have had. That was and a lot of people, I'm not alone. A lot of people, you guys probably felt it too. We had the best tools available. Kyle Dubas hit on everything. The bargain deals were bargains and they worked. You had to shop with nothing and you got a bunch of something, except that elimination win. What could have been? And maybe we have to look at it in a sense that this team is Kyle Dubas' plan. It's peaked. That's the peak. It can't get over the mountain. Game 7, elimination, round 1, label it as whatever you want. Yeah. That's the peak of the mountain.
Guys,
Kyle Dubas is not getting over it. And I think that has to start the core 4. That's their best. Austin Matthews' best is a heart and a rocket. Mitch Marner's best is neither of them. And his best is to produce poor performances, not on the ice, but off it. And that is the worst part about it. This is a common theme within these players. It's a common theme within this team. It's a reality. It's their identity. And that's what it keeps on circling to. I know we say the same thing every time. We do the same dance. This is why Toronto media is so fun, but also so frustrating, because you're insane. Insanity. Have we heard these? We labeled so many podcasts with the title Insanity. Guys, it all comes full circle. There's a reason why the blip in the season is a blip in the season. It's because it happens so frequently. Adamo, you want to add to the point? It looks like it's the peak of the core 4 or the core 5. Like there's nothing else they can do. And you're seeing that the frustration is mounting. A lot of guys could deal with it differently. Marner might not be the guy who deals it with the best, and he's the guy who's getting whipped right now amongst others in the Leafs team. But like that's the thing that stands out to me. There's continuity from last year to this year, and it's not the good one either.
No, for sure. And I was literally all I was gonna say was these guys, like, they've hit their peaks. Okay, they are in their primes. Austin Matthews is not getting better. Marner's not getting better. Nylander's not getting better. They're closer to declining than getting better. And I know it's weird to say because it feels like it was just yesterday. Matthews was 18, and you kind of bring that up. Maybe I don't want to like go this route too much, but where's our captain in this? No one's thought of that yet, eh?
That's an interesting one. I don't know.
What's going on there?
Because
It feels like there's no leader right now.
what, like the one thing I hear, and I can hear a bit of this truth too, but I understand what you're saying. There's no vocal leader from John Tavares right now. But was that always what he was? This is my personal opinion. I always thought he was a guy who worked out and led by example. I thought that was one of his biggest strengths. He was never the vocal guy. And maybe that was something that you kind of shot yourself in the foot when you got him. I don't think he was a vocal guy when he was with the Islanders. He was always a guy who led with his skill at the time and led by example. Maybe that was another mistake that you can pin on Dubas. Bring him in for all that money, generate the buzz around the team, and pay for it after when in the big situations and in places like this where you're struggling to the max and you can't get out of the rut. That you don't got that guy. No one's talking. No one is talking.
We don't have anyone else like other than the core four. It's so bare bones. It's so stupid to say. I know I sound stupid. I've been thinking it, but I'm gonna put it on the record here. Okay, this is the dumbest thing that I've been thinking, but my God, I'm ready to say it, and it's so true. We underestimated the hell out of losing Ilya Mikheyev and Ondrej Kase. Ilya Mikheyev was a 30-goal scorer that we let walk. He was an elite penalty killer. He could slot in that second line. He would be our best bottom six player right now. And we let him walk for free. Ondrej Kase, same thing. Maybe not a 30-goal scorer anymore. Was, when healthy, at least a 25-goal guy. We let him walk for free. Engvall, never. If we remember last season, Engvall was scratched. Even this season, Engvall scratched $2 million. That's our best bottom six guy, by the way. Right? Is there anyone else? Am I missing anyone?
David Keefe would be the only other one.
Who's not even playing like a bottom six guy this year, man. He's arguably one of the best players in this team.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's a little scary that David Keefe has been our best bottom six guy. Because no disrespect to David Keefe.
He's not a goal. He's not an offense guy.
Yeah, I love David Keefe, but if that's your best bottom six guy, is a guy we didn't even know of before last year, you're in deep doo-doo.
You know what has doo-doo in it? Dubas has doo-doo in it. And you know what?
You transition.
Well, yeah, but you mentioned that we let the guys walk. The team let the guys go. No, I'd have to disagree. They didn't let them do anything. They made them leave with the decisions that they made prior. Yep. And I'm not saying a they. The Shanahan plan, is that even the right name? It's not Shanahan. What is he
Shanahan fail?
The Shanahan, sure, go ahead, but it's not even his plan. It's Dubas. I was looking this up, not even looking it up. It's not even something you have to research. It's common knowledge. Who is the only player? We'll have a little bit of Leafs trivia right now, very quick. Who is the only Leafs player on the team that Kyle Dubas didn't touch or bring in? Answer? Anyone?
Matthews?
Kyle Dubas he was there when he was drafted.
Wait, repeat that question?
Oh, maybe, was he?
Wait, 26. He wasn't the GM yet.
Right, but he was with the Matthews.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Okay, so Nylander, I guess.
My Wi-Fi is having a day.
Oh no, Morgan Riley. Morgan Riley was.
Bingo. Morgan Riley is the only real player that, for the most part, wasn't really touched by Dubas. Of course, I don't think Nylander was drafted in the Dubas era, but he obviously
was Riley.
Yeah, he played his most prominent role under Dubas. Morgan Riley played one of his more prominent roles under guys like Lamoriello, under guys like, if you want to even go that far back, Dave Nonis, God forbid if we go that far back. But those were the days, like Kyle Dubas brought this team. That's kind of what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to hint at. This is Kyle Dubas' team. He's doubled down on it in the past. When there was mentions of roster moves, he said, no, these are my guys. I'm sticking with my guns. Kyle, this is your guns look good on paper. Evan, you mentioned this, and I believe you did as well, Jared, today, where on paper, it looked really good in the offseason. Paper, I think
the team looked good.
It didn't.
We have a good team. One thing you're making me think of is I do think I personally definitely underestimated the loss of Ilya Mikheyev. You're right there. But you look at this team on paper, and we didn't lose enough that I think we won't be an over 100-point team. We'll still have at least a similar record to what we had last year. We still have a good squad. But at the end of the day, you're right. Like,
I think you're too focused on like regular season success and not long term.
But that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, all we have right now is to base the regular season.
But like, I think I think what Adamo is talking about is like long term, like actually being like, because in order to win the Stanley Cup or even win a playoff round for that matter, you need depth all at all levels. Like it can't just be relying on your first and second line to score all your goals in the playoffs. Like I think that's what Adamo is trying to get at. And I understand what you're saying too, but it's like long-term effects of this. Like when you look at Colorado and how they went on their cup run, like, yeah, sure, McCarr, McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen were putting pucks in the back of the net, but so was Comfer, Nichushkin, like all these other guys, like Helm to an extent was putting goals in. Like there's so many ways a team can beat you. And I think that's what we're trying to think is like roster construction wise, like their depth in the forward positions especially is really, really
it's
thin.
so bad. It's so bad. And like, I think what Mario's kind of hinting at is, does Dubas have to go? I've defended him in the past. I've called him the most valuable asset.
You guys know my thoughts on Dubas too.
And
I'm a big Dubas guy.
You know what? I think Dubas is one of the smartest guys in the NHL. I think Kyle Dubas, if he gets fired, I think he has probably 6 or 7 teams calling him within that hour. I think Kyle Dubas's time here is dwindling down. I think he's too stubborn.
Yeah. And I think he's dug his own grave, Adamo. Like all the moves that he has made are the reasons why he might very well be out the door. I'm not saying that fire Dubas is the right call. I'm not saying that that's the right way.
You have such a smart guy. It's really hard to just let him go. And by the way, this is his last year. He's probably not re-signing, but go on.
But he also, I think this is something you also have to study when you're looking at the history of the league in the future. Dubas, I don't think any other GM, at least in my knowledge, and maybe we'll see in the future, maybe it's a trend. I've never seen GMs build a team like this, overpaying your star players, building it on sort of like a reverse, an inverse pyramid, if you will, I guess, where all the value is at the top. And as you go closer to the bottom, and I'm hinting at maybe the bottom 6 or the bottom 4, it gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And what's at the base, guys? What's at the base of an inverse pyramid? A tip and a very thin one, the thinnest part of the object. And what happens when you have a thin part of an object with a lot of heavy stuff on top?
Oh, this is good.
It all comes crashing down. Maybe that's what we're seeing.
That was good.
Maybe this is what's going to happen this year. I know. I pride myself off of great moments. The Leafs simply do not. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen mid-season, guys. I'm not saying that this is the fix. I'm not the guy who's going to say go out and fire Dubas. I'm saying that the problem is right in front of us. And I think we're just too stubborn to look at it. I don't know what else we got to say.
Look, you can't fire him mid-season. If you fire him mid-season, a new guy comes in and he's going to start over. He's going to blow it up. He's going to blow it up. A new guy he's going to make trades, and you can't afford to waste a year of these guys' primes.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring in a new GM this year, you might as well just tell your fans we're selling the season. Like, we're not selling the team, but like we've quit on the season.
You're signing the divorce papers from the from the team, and that's hilarious, by the way.
I'm not kidding. I like this year's draft. It's kind of stacked. I know we're speaking. It's not going to happen. But like one of like Fantilli, Michkov, and Bedard. Are you kidding me?
Replacement for Matthews, maybe. Huh? Replacement for Matthews, maybe. You don't know. We have to see how it plays out.
Now we're just shit talking.
Of course. But like, yeah.
They're not that bad. And you know what the worst part is? They're not that bad. I wish they were, because they're so incredibly mid. They still are, man. Yeah. They're so average. Like they don't suck to the point where we gotta blow this thing up. They're right in the worst spot where
it's far. It's the middle.
You're not going to beat a good team because you're not good enough, but you're not bad enough to tank for Bedard because you're not. Like they still have this big 4 of guys who are still competent hockey players.
Yeah, you know? And I mean, I from what I've seen in the past with this group, last season I think was the biggest one of all, because I think that was one of the bigger slumps they've had at the beginning of the season. And again, all the eyes are in the beginning of the season because that's what kind of you only have to work with. It's not like, oh, okay, we saw great stuff in the beginning. Oh, they suck in a little bit of the middle. But hey, remember the good stuff. We don't have any good stuff to compare it on with this current group. So
and where's it going to come from?
Exactly.
Do we think good stuff's going to, like, Matthews could go goal a game and we still might be 500 because for some reason we have like 3 NHL defensemen and like maybe 8 NHL forwards and 1 NHL goalie.
Yeah. And I hate to bring this up, and I know it kind of deteriorates everything that we were talking about today. There's not going to be any changes. There's not going to be any changes, guys.
Yeah.
Keefe's not getting fired.
They're not making a trade.
4-1. They lose tomorrow against Philly. Maybe they're winning 1-0 and just the rails come off. Something bad happens.
Goalie,
I'm not going to say.
I mean, it would be so. What? I'm sorry. Go.
I'm just going to say I'm not going to say I'm cheering against them, but I wouldn't be mad with a loss.
How far can we push?
How far can this go?
What will it take?
Because I want change. That Anaheim game, I was fucking happy when Zegras scored because they got what they deserved, and I need change. I don't need that extra fucking point against the Ducks. I want change.
And you knew it in the second period that was going to happen too. Isn't that the most frustrating part about being a fan?
So predictable,
dude.
Why am I putting money? Why am I putting money on Nick Ritchie when he's in town? Why am I putting money on Barabanov?
Guy
on the road.
Barabanov, like fucking Amadio, Kessel. Is Tyler Bozak still playing? When do we play the Blues?
I think Bozak's on the Lynx.
No, and I don't blame him. But hey, guys, like that's the thing. When is the predictability going to end? And when is it gonna stop being more predictable?
I mean, if they lose tomorrow,
nothing will happen, Evan. Nothing's gonna happen.
I know, which is so stupid. But like, if the goalie that they're playing is 0-6-1 with 7 goals against. Like, dude, if you lose to that goalie, like, I'm sorry, like I'm not blowing it up, but then a major trade has to happen. Like, this team needs a wake. They're too good to be this bad. And like, it's honestly not a bad thing. Like, it's not the end of the world if they trade one of these guys. Like, you're not going to get a scrub for Nylander. Like, when you make a trade, it's going to it usually benefits both sides. Maybe one team wins by a slim margin, but like, they haven't had success really. So like, who's to say that like a different player couldn't, and not like the Foligno trade, but like someone who can actually make, no offense to Nick Foligno, but someone who can actually make it. Yeah, full offense. Like, full offense to Nick Foligno, but someone who can actually make an impact come playoff time.
Yep. And that's
like, maybe you go for Brock. I mean, maybe Brock Besser is an option. Like, Vancouver's trying to get rid of him. Like, maybe you get
Horvat.
Is that what
not
puts us over the
Brock
edge?
Besser, Bo Horvat. I meant Bo Horvat. But who knows? Like, you gotta at least. I feel like you gotta at least owe it to your fans to like try something different. Like, you gotta owe it to them to at least say that like, we're gonna make a change. Like, signing guys to a 1-year, $2.4 million contract is not really gonna do justice.
Dude, but Dubas. Go on.
Oh no, the one thing I'm saying is that all of us are saying the same thing, that the Leafs are still, yes, we're not saying they're amazing, this team that's going to be a cup contender, whatever, but they're a good enough team to have the regular season success. And we saw even last year in the playoffs, we looked good against Tampa. We took them to 7 games and lost by a single goal. So who's saying that we can't go to the playoffs again and finally get one more goal in that game by a guy like Austin Matthews or one of our top guys? And we could go through, like, we still have a good team. We're looking at what ifs where we could bring in a guy and what if they're the answer, but what if they aren't? What if the answer is in the room and it's on the players to step up though?
That's been the question they've been asking for
it's been 7 years. The answer isn't in the room. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
What do you mean step up? Matthews scored 60 last year. What, does he need to score 70? It's not happening, guys. That's the thing. They can't do it. They can't do it. Like, how, like, insanity is doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, we know.
It's the whole shebang, and we're gonna do it again. Let's do it again. Let's talk about the same guys. Let's play Justin Hall 20 minutes a night. Let's play, I don't know. Let's find some Swedish guy in the Finnish league or something. Bring him over. Give him his 4th line minutes. He gets pissed. Requests a trade. Traded to fucking pick a team. Winnipeg, Vancouver, and he's in their top 6 now.
Thing is, Jared's the most right here. He said it the best. That's what they're gonna do. That's what they're gonna go with. They're gonna just try to get guys on the team to
trade's
step up.
Not happening. And it's incredible. Not happening.
Like, we're talking nonsense here, guys. It's not happening.
Dubas has dug his, like, to the dictionary term, dug his own grave. Like, he has so many fucking prospects at his disposal, And he has 1 year left. If he wants, he can royally fuck the Leafs over for the future. And no, he can. He could literally trade Matthew Nyes and Topi Niemela for give me a mid player. Bring back Ilya
Mikheyev.
Give you a rental player too.
Tobias Bjorn, sure. Former
that was a Leafs draft pick. Yeah.
Save Ilya Mikheyev. There you go. He trades Matthew Nyes for Ilya Mikheyev. The Leafs do get better, technically. He leaves, and that's it.
Remember, backtracking is a common theme in Toronto too. So backtracking on comments and decisions, very common. But guys, I think we got to just throw in the towel there. Let's put a bow in it, guys. It's I don't know. A lot of Leafs Nation is going to feel the same way, where nothing's going to happen because it just never does, and that's why the team is so predictable. Because we know that nothing's going to happen. And maybe that's why the team is so predictable in those big moments, those big elimination games, because it starts here when the times are most tough. I'm not going to say it is, and I'm not going to say it's definite, but some might argue these kind of times where you're in a rut like this is kind of similar to the pressure you got when you're in an elimination game, when your backs are against the wall. It's kind of similar, and you're in a regular season stance, and you have the ability to make a change that can help you avoid stuff like that happening in this upcoming postseason. Let's see how they react to it. Let's see what Kyle Dubas does. Is he going to make a change? Is he going to do something for the better? Or is he going to go down and walk out of this team in flames and far from any glory? But guys, that does it for this episode of Leafs Line Podcast. Again, I am your host, Mary Russo, Evan Davis, Jared Rotenberg, and Adama Rimoli. We're hoping we don't have to have this conversation next week or the week after, but
we'll see you next week.
With the way this team goes, you never do know. But guys, take care. Enjoy the Philly game tomorrow. And peace and love.
Try your best.
Try your best and get it done. Take care.